Hello and welcome to Life in the Cave, episode 2, where we deconstruct the nonsense and the lies, noble and otherwise, that you've been seeing in the news and in the media and in culture this week. I am Matt, and this week I am not joined by my friend Micah because he is dealing with some sort of plumbing issue, which I hope to hear about next time we speak. I did want to do this either way, even if I'm going solo, because I got a lot of clips. It was a big week. There's lots of stuff going on in the news, and I wanted to make sure that I kept up to date with these things, because after a certain amount of time, it's really just not worth talking about because everyone's already done it. Not to say that I think I have too much distinct input on this, but I still wanted to make sure that we got to it for continuity's sake. So this is episode 2. If you haven't seen episode 1, it is up on the YouTube channel. We've not yet gotten to any podcast platforms, but hopefully we'll do that real soon. So as you know, this podcast is about life in the cave, and that's in reference to Plato's cave, the allegory of the cave in book 7 of the Republic, where basically everyone is just deceived about what's important. I mean, that's the bottom line. A bunch of people tied up in a cave, staring at shadows on the wall. They think it's reality, and it's really not. So if we can kind of tear through some of that stuff and get to some meat and potatoes, some real stuff that's happening, which usually involves sorting through a whole bunch of lies and misinformation, then we've accomplished our job. We've escaped the cave for just a moment, even though likely we'll be back again real soon. So there's this element of philosophy in the podcast, there's an element of current events and news, media, deconstruction, and that's what we're doing here. So to start with, I guess, kind of both philosophy and media deconstruction, I wanted to talk really quick about some words that are kind of used very carelessly in the news on both the right-wing and the left-wing media. And these are words that are usually in reference to political systems. And if you haven't seen, I put up a video yesterday about some words that the news media should just stop using. And we use words like unprecedented or, there's a bunch of them. I think I have like a list of 7. And so if you haven't seen that, check it out. But if you have, then this is kind of along the same lines. The sets of words that have been just thrown around very carelessly are these related to these kind of political systems. On the right, you're going to see people using systems like communism, socialism, and on the left, you're going to see fascism and authoritarianism. These words are just thrown around very carelessly, levied against political opponents. So, Donald Trump is a fascist, of course, and the left are a bunch of socialists. Now, those things I'm not debating whether or not they're true, but I am saying that these words are used very, very frivolously, very carelessly, and they're used interchangeably. So I came up with a list of a bunch, and I just wanted to bring them up so that when you see them, when you hear them in the news, you get something kind of clicks, and you realize that there's something off here. And so the first set of words are the ones that are used on the left, levied against the right. So we'll use words like fascist, authoritarian, autocratic, dictatorial. There's a whole list of these, basically far right, tyrant, tyranny, and then they'll use words like comparing people to Hitler, comparing people to Mussolini. All these things are just lumped together, and they're used rather interchangeably. So one day, Trump is a fascist. Still, every day he's a fascist. But and then he's an authoritarian. Then he's an autocrat. Then he's a dictator. And these words are used interchangeably. And the thing is, those words do have different meanings. They're not the same. And so when you see people levying these words against someone else, I want you to really think. Maybe use a dictionary, maybe use an encyclopedia, and get the definition of these words, because 9 times out of 10 they're being used inappropriately, particularly fascist. The word fascist is not one that's particularly useful in today's political landscape. It's just not a word that's really worth levying against someone else. But we do have a video on fascism, so you can check that out and it will give you kind of an idea of what fascism really is at its roots. And it's not something that is particularly present today. So on the other side of the aisle, your right wingers are levying these words against against left wingers, against Democrats, and those words include communist, socialist, and then if you get really fancy, you're going to get like your Trotskyites, your Leninites. You're going to get communists, a whole array of words that in their time and now have a very particular sort of meaning. So, for instance, I mean, if you think about Trotsky, right? So people use the word Trotsky. Mark Levin does this a lot. He calls people a Trotskyite. And in reality, that doesn't really have any bearing to what people believe right now. But back in the day, in Trotsky's time, he got killed for what he believed about socialism and how socialism is achieved. So the difference between Stalin's socialism and Trotsky's socialism were significant enough that that someone died over it. Probably a bunch of people died over it. So I guess what I want to say is these words are nuanced words. They are words that ought to be used carefully, and they are words that ought not be levied with frivolous nature, particularly by news pundits who really, I mean, let's be honest, they're not studying politics. Most likely, they're probably someone else is probably writing their stuff, honestly. So it's really not it's not helpful. These two sets of words, the far right autocratic sort of words and the far left socialistic words, I think we should just stick to one, right? Stick to, you're being socialist, you're being a tyrant, or a dictator, whatever. I mean, we understand what they're saying, but this whole interchangeable array of words on both sides does a lot more harm than it does any good. So that's kind of the philosophy for the day. I really want to be thoughtful and careful about the words that we use and the words that we allow others to use. And I don't mean like censoring people, but the words that if you're listening to someone and if you're trusting the words they're saying, you better be holding them accountable to use words that are helpful, words that are instructive, and words that are accurate. I guess those are sort of the criterion that I would use in that regard. So, getting on from this little lecture or whatever you want to call it, there are so many things that happened this week. I mean, we did our last podcast on Monday, and since then we've had a debate and we've had Donald Trump getting coronavirus. Those are the two big things that have happened, and all the fallout that has ensued from those events. So I wanted to get into some of these events, and I wanted to get into some clips from there. And I wanted to just start with the debate. The debate, I think, one of the things that was sort of surprising to me was how people reacted to the debate. I think on both sides there was this, I don't want to call it virtue signaling, but there was a sense of, I have to say how bad it is before I can talk about it. I have to let you know that I'm above all the stuff that was happening in this debate before I can, kind of parse it out. And it was ridiculous. It was a strange event because of everyone that was on that stage. But I would be really shocked to find someone who before the debate expected anything else. Like, if you were watching that event for anything more than entertainment, then you had expectations that were wrong. You shouldn't have been doing that. I mean, to think that you were going to get substance was an incorrect motivation for watching that, and we know that. We knew it from the beginning. I mean, you've seen how Donald Trump does his thing. He's very I don't know what the word would be. He's very disruptive is a good word, and you knew the sorts of things that were going to be talked about. and there was just no way around it being difficult. No way around it being a troublesome thing. So the fact that people were shocked and appalled and I'm so disappointed with how it's gone. That's just people trying to, advance their politics. So it was silly, but we expected it to be silly, and there's certainly no problem with that, right? No one's actually listening to this thing to see how they're going to vote. Everyone already has their opinions of Donald Trump. They have their opinions of Joe Biden. Really, either side was just looking for the other side to maybe say something that's incriminating. I think the right-wingers wanted to see Joe Biden, forget his name or something like that. And of course, they wanted to see Donald Trump say something racist. And even though he didn't, they still accused him of doing that, which we'll get to here soon. But, whatever. Not impressed, but at the same time, I'm not impressed from an entertainment standpoint like I thought it could have been. They should have boxing gloves on or something. I don't really know. So the first thing I wanted to get at with the debate is this whole white supremacy thing. We've talked about, by we, I mean, basically everyone's talked about right after the debate. There's like, Trump refused to denounce white supremacy. And I think what he decided to say was kind of strange, but I think that the ensuing media coverage of these events has proven that it doesn't really matter what he says. If he got up on that stage and said, "I disavow white supremacy," I say, "Stop going to these things," it wouldn't have made a single difference. So here's this is the issue. Here it is. This is.
It has happened before with President Trump stopping short of clearly denouncing far-right extremist and racist groups and sentiments when...
Oh, well, that was half a clip, but basically that's the whole point, is they're all saying he did not denounce white supremacy, and you'll hear Biden in this next clip say that he's never done so.
He's yet wants to condemn white supremacy.
So Biden said Trump has never denounced white supremacy, and the ensuing clip coming up here is 3 minutes of that happening. So what I'm getting at here isn't that Trump is a fantastic guy. I don't think to say that you're against racism makes you fantastic, but I'm trying to point out the fact that people are just lying about this. So here's a 3-minute clip. I probably won't play the whole thing, but here's a 3-minute clip of Donald Trump saying those exact things.
The neo-Nazis. He hasn't condemned the darn thing.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
We've got David Duke just joined. A bigot, a racist, a problem.
Would you repudiate David Duke?
Sure.
So this was back from the 2016 election. David Duke supported Trump, and Trump is having to disassociate himself from David Duke. So the first couple clips are about him, but then it kind of broadens out.
Duke, and robocalls are out again, the white supremacist movement supporting you. Do you have any words for that?
Well, I disavow.
David Duke endorsed me? Okay. All right. I disavow. Okay?
When we looked at it and looked at the question, I disavowed David Duke. So I've disavowed David Duke all weekend long on Facebook, on Twitter, and obviously it's never enough.
So are you prepared right now to make a clear and unequivocal statement renouncing the support of all white supremacists?
Of course I am. Of course I am.
When Chris joined, we had a news conference, and they asked me the exact same question. I said, I disavow. I disavowed then. I disavowed today on ABC with George Stephanopoulos. I disavowed again.
David Duke is a bad person who I disavowed on numerous occasions over the years.
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke. Ultimately, he got to the Ku Klux Klan, which obviously I'm going to disavow.
I reject David Duke, rejected.
All right, so there's David Duke stuff. I think later in the clip it talks about
KKK's official newspaper, as in the Ku Klux Klan.
In the same New York Times interview, he denounced white supremacists. He denounced the neo-Nazis who support him.
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally.
All right, so, there's more to that clip. It's a 3-minute clip. But the reality is, on so many occasions, those words were said. I denounce white supremacy, I denounce racism, I denounce KKK, David Duke, whatever. And it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. It's going to be spun by people who don't like him. And that's the same thing with any politician. I think that there's a lot more vitriol, there's a lot more disdain for Trump than there is for your average Joe presidents. But I think that the point is made, right? That accusation is just not good. It's not helpful, and it's one that should be stopped. But they're not going to stop. Of course they're not. So that is the first bit on the debate. And they were talking about the interruptions. Interruptions are, I mean, they make a problem for watching, right? They're not. It's not really too enjoyable to watch something that's not cohesive. But regarding the interruptions, I think that there's also something to say about that open discussion. You know, if you have 2 minutes, someone else has 2 minutes, and then you can yell at each other for another 2 minutes, I think that's fine. So I think the moderator wasn't that great. I think that he could have kind of let chaos ensue for the open discussion and really only crack down on those 2 minutes, which he did. But I think that, there's nothing really to speak of from there. And frankly, I think the first interruption in the debate was actually Biden's interruption. But that's neither here nor there, because it doesn't really matter, because we know we know who the culprit was of the most of the interruptions. So the only other part for the debate that I think I wanted to talk about is this super predator thing, because it's really pretty interesting. I think it's somewhat incredible that they fact-checked this thing to bits, right? They had their chief political correspondent or whoever it is that comes on, and they talked about how everything was a lie, right? Everything that Donald Trump said was a lie. But they really didn't touch on this super predator thing. This super predator thing where Donald Trump said that Biden calls black people super predators. And it's really interesting why that was the case. And I think I'd like to show you the clip, that the super predator clip, and then I will show you why I think they decided not to bring it up. So here's the super predator. This is from 1994. This is when Biden was pushing through a crime bill that was, by today's standards, kind of racist. It was basically saying that black people are predators and they're going to cause some trouble. So here's the clip.
There's about 100,000 of them who are the predators. 100,000 of the kids you read about in the front page of the newspaper every day. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, a portion of them will become the predators 15 years from now. And, Madam President, we have predators on our streets. They are beyond the pale, many of those people. We have no choice but to take them out of society.
All right, so that clip did not age well. People don't say these things anymore, but in 1994, apparently they did. So Biden, that was him, calls these people predators. And that is the word. In fact, he did not use the word super predator. But do you know who did use the word super predator? Hillary Clinton. So, in order to fact check this statement, this predator, super predator statement, whatever news outlet would need to say, no, Joe Biden did not say super predator, Donald Trump was lying, they'd love to say that, but they wouldn't love to say, he just said predator, and they certainly wouldn't love to say, Hillary Clinton is the one who said super predator. So that's why they didn't touch that. It was something that they decided just to pass on. They felt like they had enough ammunition, and they probably did. So the next thing is the vice presidential debate, which is coming up on Wednesday. It should be, fine, I guess. We'll see. I think that Kamala Harris, in my opinion, is sort of an unlikable person. And there's another clip right here about Ruth Bader Ginsburg that she kind of did a little gaffe. Here it is.
She was part of our culture. Yes, we wear those notorious BIG t-shirts with a lot of pride.
All right, so that is notorious RBG. She said BIG. Obviously just a mistake, but I thought it was kind of funny. So, beyond the debate, and beyond the fallout of the debate, and the reality that, Donald Trump is terrible, we're left with what comes of it. We're left with who really benefits from it, and does anyone have a clear advantage from what happened in the debate? And I think probably not. I think it didn't really change too much. We have two more. They're talking about changing the format. They're talking about doing a different sort of situation, maybe where they turn mics off or do something to that effect, and we'll see how that plays out. I'm not really sure. But beyond that, we have Donald Trump getting coronavirus, and this was a big thing. He announced he had coronavirus. He walks over to a helicopter. There's a lot of controversy about even that. Is he wearing oxygen? Whatever. Some people say he's got a body double. That was he was really in a stretcher somewhere. But the reality is, it looks like he's going to be quite fine. But in between the understanding that he is sick and he's going to be fine, we had a bunch of stuff going on, and a lot of it just boiled down to people wanting to get political points. Some people were very nice and they were supportive, as I think anyone who's sick should receive support. Some people wish that he would die, but for the most part, it was what you would expect. The clip there's two clips that I want to show. This one is Donald Trump and his doctors. I'm going to have to skip around in this one, but essentially, if we start...
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Yamas here with the latest on President Trump and his battle with COVID-19. Just a few minutes ago, a White House official telling ABC News that Vice President Mike Pence and Second Lady Karen Pence both tested negative for COVID-19 again today. That's the third day they've tested negative since President Trump's diagnosis. This comes after the president's doctors at Walter Reed told reporters that President Trump is getting better but did receive supplemental oxygen on Friday.
Thursday night into Friday morning when I left.
Okay, so this is the doctor saying, he had a little fever, we gave him some oxygen, and some people had a problem with that.
Attitude at the team.
Rachel Scott. And Rachel, a rather striking admission there. What's the latest on the president's condition? And we're learning why there was a mixed message coming from the president's doctors and his own chief of staff, and it has to do with the fever?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. And what we are seeing today is the president's physicians trying to clean up some of their comments from yesterday when reporters could not get their questions answered to simple questions about, the president's fever. How high was it when he had one? When the president would be discharged, or whether or not the president was given supplemental oxygen. Now, all of this confusion also coming down after the moments after that press briefing yesterday.
All right, so they're complaining because they don't know, what the situation is in the hospital. And then there's some other guy comes on.
People who have tested positive. We're at that Rose Garden celebration for 8.
So these super spreading events are really important, and a recent study out of India, 60% the virologic phase of life in the intensive care unit. So we have to take this day by day. Obviously, on oxygen, what are his vital signs? What are he as COVID-19 that can affect people of the same family, where one person can be asymptomatic and another person fighting for their life? We need accurate information, and what we want to know is the president currently on oxygen? What are his vital signs? What are his inflammatory markers? We're hearing he's not on oxygen now. That's a good sign. Most people who are hospitalized with this end up walking out of the hospital. But again, I've treated many patients, and sometimes we see individuals who are doing well on one day, and within 24 hours, they're fighting for their life.
All right, so I clipped this because I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, why does it matter if we, the American people, or these news outlets, if they know if there was oxygen, what the fever is, what his blood oxygen level was? These things are inconsequential to the American public. They say it's important, we need to know, but really the people who need to know are the doctors. And, you know, if I'm in the hospital, I don't need my information about a hospital visit to be broadcast, and neither does he. If he dies, we need to know that, or if he's unable to do the stuff that he's got to do, we need to know that so that we know who is actually running the country. But in reality, it doesn't matter if he got oxygen, it doesn't matter if he didn't. What matters is he going to be leaving the hospital? Is everything okay? In the event that that's a yes, we move on. There's no, I mean, people are kind of being a little silly about this, in my personal opinion. Now, one of my fears, and it was something I was excited to talk to Micah about tonight, was what is he going to do with the reality that he has had it? How's he going to spin it? How is he going to use his having had COVID-19 politically? And I think this clip is going to tell us how. So this is him basically, reaching out to his people, saying he's going to go give him a visit, and at the end is what I want to play, so I'm going to skip through it.
We're getting great reports from the doctors. This is an incredible hospital, Walter Reed.
All right, good news from there.
Than maybe anybody. So it's been a very interesting journey. I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school. This isn't the let's read the book school. And I get it, and I understand it, and it's a very interesting thing, and I'm going to be letting you know about it. In the meantime, we love the USA, and we love what's happening.
All right, so he knows now. He's got it. He went to real school, and now he's got it. And that was kind of my fear, is that he's going to say, I've got it, now I understand exactly what needs to happen. I'm the pro. I'm going to, conquer COVID-19. And, in my personal opinion, his opinion is just as good as anyone else's, because all this information that's coming out is garbage. But I think it's gonna be a really interesting PR position when he starts saying, okay, I get it. I'm gonna tell you now what to do, what it's like, how it's gonna work. His anecdotal evidence of what treatments worked for him. I think it might not be the best track to take for him as far as public support goes, but that's his decision, and I think it's going to be funny either way. It'll be worth watching. I found another a funny clip right before I close out. I found a clip that I thought was really funny, and this is Jake Tapper talking to Jill Biden, and he mentions the gaffes, kind of the mistakes that Joe Biden makes, and this is how she responds.
Your husband has been known to make the occasional gaffe.
You can't even go there. You can, after Donald Trump, you cannot even say the word
I can't even say the word gaffe?
Nope.
But you not
Nope. Done. It's gone.
The gaffe issue is over because
Over. So over.
I just thought it was a funny clip. So yeah, no, we're not allowed to talk about it anymore. Jill Biden has spoken, and that's it. It's over. So, from the debate, maybe it is over. I think that he did pretty well. I think the level of discontinuity, the level of silly things and forgetfulness and that sort of thing was low. It was very low. So we'll see if that holds up. if so, I think that's bad for Donald Trump, because I think he's banking on Joe Biden to be inept and unable to complete a sentence. However, when that doesn't happen, you might have to have an actual race, and we'll see how that goes. So I had a couple other clips, but I think we'll call it there. Those are the big ones. Those are the time sensitive ones. We're getting on a half hour, and I think that is a perfect time to sign off. So thanks for watching the second one, guys. Hopefully next time Michael will be here, and it will be a more thorough analysis of the things that are happening. But I did want to catch up on these things, and I appreciate you guys watching. Please do comment. Let us know what sorts of things you liked, what sorts of things you didn't like. Also in the comments, please let us know what sorts of things you want us to talk about. If you want to send us clips, if you want to send us news stories, we'd love to have them. We'd like to be a community-produced event, so that would be another thing for you to do. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and share, and we will catch you next time for episode 3 next Monday on Life in the Cave. See you later.